Is this an adventure or what? We don't need unexplained phenomena. I hope you guys are enjoying this journey we're taking you on. I know you come expecting to hear about big cats, cryptids, UFOs. We will touch on some of that, but I think it's worth sharing some of this for you, don't you? There's only 2 living souls up here today.
Because I can see it in my mind, I can see it in my head what I saw, but I can't describe.
Our eyes was closed, like a brightish light in my face, and I just felt paralysed.
Someone said there's something out there, so we had a look. It looked like a walnut. That's the only way I can describe it.
It was like it had loads of tiny little windows all over it, and it had lights in those windows, but not a light that illuminates.
Anyway, we were ushered into this lounge. This fella came in, he said, whatever you saw was a weather effect.
And everything is deathly silent. There's no sea, there's no wind, there's no night noise, because you know there's foxes all over here. There's nothing.
As usual, there's nothing. And great to see everybody. Hope you're all, well, I hope you've all had a good weekend, and I hope the rest of the week turns out okay for you. Although I always say it, don't I? It's work, so it's not going to be, is it? But there you go. So, tonight, you've just got me. I'm doing a podcast tomorrow, a pre-record with Craig Bryant of Paranormal Pendle. And I did say to Craig, if he wanted to pop on sometime, he can come on tonight and have a little natter, and you can get to know what he's about as well. So we shall see. But same old, we've just been doing all what we usually do up and along East and North Yorkshire, and receiving some reports, some really interesting reports as well. And I don't know whether you guys, whether you're just observers, experiencers, or just got an interest or no interest altogether. And if it's brought you here, then great. Well, we're pleased to see you. And I never normally say it at this hour, do I? At this time, but if you want to subscribe, feel free, press the like and subscribe. And look, we got Gemma doing moderating, Lee's doing the moderating. I spoke to Alison in week. She's okay. And yeah, all good. So let's have a look. Gareth Dixon, Dragonborn's in, Jojo. You know, I'm not going to get through all these names. We've got 200 people here. Andrew Wild, Pointer. Let's have a look here. We've got Stephen Colling. Gareth Dixon we've done. Dub Snapper, Margaret Webster. I think Linny will be in. Ian's in. Mrs. Linny, Elaine. Mia Girl, good to see you. Zero Dawn, Disabled Welshman. I hope you're okay, mate. I hope you're feeling good. And Roddy Burns, not Robbie Burns. Let's have a look here. And Gillian Daniels. There's going to be more. Oh, Neil Wilstrop, I've seen you tonight about 15 minutes ago. That were a bit of a shocker. No, 20 minutes ago, because electrics tripped in his flat. And I thought, oh, God, I'm not going to be able to do this. But luckily, it were an easy fix. And I told him we were online. So Neil's arrived. Good to see you, Neil. You've got to press like and subscribe now. So, yeah, all good. And Ian Langton, Dizzy Dawes. So where are we at, people? I want some questions in capital letters, and we'll get through some questions, because you've either got me for an hour or 2 hours, depending on what I get coming through. Or, you know what I mean? I've got a few reports, so I'm going to just share a few of those with you. On what day was it? On Friday. Thank you, Jojo. That's really kind of you. Brilliant. Thank you. On Friday, I went to the Forge Valley, and I met up with my eldest daughter, Sarah. And then we met up with Ian, who had his strange experience. Let's have a look at year. Back in, I've got it wrote down here, look. 2002/2003. You may recall me talking about this man who, whilst driving through the Forge Valley, encountered this strange web across the road. So it don't conform, does it? It don't conform to UFOs. It don't conform to a cryptid sighting, a ghost sighting, or anything. But I think these reports, these quirky reports, are as important as anything, because he clearly encountered something highly unusual. Me being me, I took a surveyor's tape with me and I measured the road, and it was 26 feet, the width of the road. It went over into the trees and it went up at other sides. So this web that he ran into, which can't have been a spider's web, let's face it, 26 foot wide, 15 to 20 foot deep. But Ian allowed me to record him, and I'm going to make a short for the YouTube channel. I don't know, next week or two, but I'm just going to play you a little bit of it now, and then you guys can get a gist of straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And this is me, because I also went back to Forge Valley yesterday, and I just wanted to run along that road in dark and just get a feel for it. And I'm a glutton for punishment, aren't I? But here we go. So have a listen to this, and then if you've got any questions about this, let us know.
Be about 2002, 2003. I've been round to see my parents. They lived at Scorby. And I never came the quick way back. I always used to go the long way around because I used to enjoy the drive.
Yeah.
So from Scorby, went to Burniston up to Hackness towards Forge Valley. As you come to the turn off for Ladiators, I turned right, it was a tight corner, and there's another tight corner, turning left, and that's when there was like a big sort of like netting across the road.
Yeah, I was amazed when you told me about this. What colour were it, Ian?
It was white. You know the plastic white clotheslines you used to be able to get? It was like that, but a little bit thicker, about as thick as your little finger.
Really?
But it had sort of strands coming off it.
Yeah. And did it look like squares?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. And as the front of the car hit it, that's the netting, that started to sort of turn to smoke. As the windscreen hit it, it all sort of started to smoke as well.
Really?
Then...
When you say smoke, that's what it looked like?
It just looked like smoke.
Yeah.
And that's when I got the smell of candy floss in the car.
Okay, guys. So what do you think to that? I mean, I've already spoke about it, so you've, over a number of years, so you've got a rough idea, but there's nothing better than man who actually saw it, or the person who actually saw it, sort of relaying what they said. There were a lot more to that, not hours and hours, but there were a little bit more to that which I'll fill in. When Ian ran into this web, and that's what it was like, this white web with 4-inch by 6-inch sort of grid, they're not squares, are they? Slightly oblong, all the way along it. It evaporated or turned to this smoke, which didn't create a dust or anything. However, his car filled with candy floss. He was so surprised and shocked at what he'd seen. As soon as he could, he turned round in the road. There's some pull-ins to various beauty spots around Raincliffe Woods and Hackness. So he turned round. Literally, probably took him 2 minutes to actually turn around and be back on the road where he'd just seen it. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing to be seen. But where it becomes interesting for me, and I think probably for Ian, although I don't know how long he's dwelled on it, he might be listening to this now. After that moment, he's got no memory of going home. He remembers being at home and being at home thinking about it. But from turning around in the road and driving back, the memory of getting home is erased. He's got nothing. Now, I suppose we've got two ways of looking at that, haven't we? Do you think it was just the incredibleness of what he'd seen that were consuming his mind, and he's just in a daydream thinking about that and driving? Automatic pilot? Could be. Probably that's what it was. Or do you think something else happened? Ian's not hinted that it has, and I've not pushed that because I like it to just come naturally from whoever's talking to me. But it's fascinating, don't you think? I really, really think that story is interesting. And what's more interesting, because in his initial emails to me years ago, he told me they were driving from Hackness. So I always assumed that he was actually very close to the village of Hackness, which he was, but he'd driven out of Hackness. Now, people, guess where he was? And some of you guys will know when I say it. He was close to Old Man's Mouth. The water spout, the place where the figures been appearing on the road, and all the other strange activity. So isn't that fascinating that we've got another element, another little branch to the strangeness? What'll be even better is if somebody else has experienced that. Not necessarily in Forge Valley or around the Forge Valley, but anywhere. I've never heard a story like that. I don't know what you guys think. So it were good of Ian to share that with me. and I really appreciate it. He made a lot of effort to get out and come and share it with me. Let's have a look at what this says here. Vorpa. That web was not exactly UFO angel hair either. Very odd. No, and I know what you mean, because I can't remember exact decade, Vorpa, but it 1960s, and people after a UFO sighting or during a UFO sighting, they were finding, could have been 70s as well, very thin, wispy strands, almost like cobweb. You see it blowing, don't you? Certain months a year when webs are just hanging heavy. And obviously when it dries out, you see it. But there's an association with this strange hair, this strange substance that they call angel hair, that were associated with UFO sightings. I think it was 60s and 70s. Somebody will get me right with that one. I'm not exactly sure at date, but I don't think that were it. I think you're right. And that were just a really strange one. And he said there were wispy bits coming off it. So your guess is as good as mine. But keep those quirky sightings coming, because I've said many, many times, it's not just about UFOs and sightings of UFOs. It's not just about people reporting cryptid sightings. What Ian saw, to me, is just as important, and equally important is the fear. And there'll be some people, I see Karen Berman's in, Jojo, let's have a look, Margaret Webster, Ginge, we've done Gillian Daniels, Space Cow, Andrew Wild. Let's have a look. Scottish Paranormal Podcast. Good to see you. And just sort of, let's jump back to the fear. What can people report apart from feeling an intense, overwhelming fear? But that seems to come hand in hand with unexplained phenomena. Not in all instances. We know people have brilliant experiences, but the fear that comes over people. I mean, I think in next week or two, if Ian wants to, Ian can come on and we'll talk about that, because he's got an experience of it, and I'll talk about it now because it won't hurt. Because if it's coming from horse's mouth in a week or two, I'm saying a week or two, people, because there'll be no truth proof next Sunday. I've got something on and I can't do it, but I might see if I can do something for you guys. What I'm going to say, yeah. So when we got what we called the visitation, the light that visited us, 7 people, and there were no mistaking, regardless of having no proof apart from what I'm saying now and what the other 6 are saying, we got that visitation. That felt good. For some reason, we all came away thinking we'd had a really positive experience, which were brilliant. However, probably 4 weeks ago, we were up there. And I don't know who were with us. There were me, Mark. There might have been 4 of us. Yeah, Pete were there as well. And if you're in chat, Pete, I hope you're feeling okay, mate. I hope you're feeling a little bit better. And just one of us, Ian, just in his peripheral, caught sight of something on edge of cliff, looked at it, and it were there for a split second and then vanished. Just one white light. Frightened him. Not mind me saying it, but because that's how it made him feel. And I felt like that myself. But why would a light make you feel frightened? Somebody came down earlier, not this week, last week, and I've not really spoken in detail about it to them yet. And they came down and they turned back because of an overwhelming feeling of fear. And I do realise that there might be some people watching this, even if you've got a mild interest and you're just watching it, raising your eyebrows and thinking, yeah, you're all frightening yourselves. We're not. I've spent years up there in and around these locations, in woodlands, not just on East Yorkshire coast, all over the place, in the darkness, walking about with no fear. Anybody who knows me knows I'll go up to Dane's Dyke with my little companion, but I mean, who's going to bother me when I've got Bobby? Let's face it. No, but I'll go up there and I'll go up there in darkness and wait. No, I don't wait. And then obviously daylight breaks in, but I don't feel fear. There's just odd times that there's something a little bit different. There's something that sort of trips and you feel that overwhelming fear. And that's what he felt. And I don't know if Dominic's in chat, but I know it kind of got him. And I don't know where it comes from. Let's just have a look here. And if Craig comes in later, Craig Bryant, Paranormal Pendle, get some questions for him. I know he's invested a lot of time and a lot of energy in what's called the Shadow Man of, I think it's Accrington. So he might want to tell us about that. We shall see. Let's have a look. Scottish Paranormal. So this is Chris Meek. Great to see you, Chris. I've noticed now you can't walk around Staxton Wold on Street View. Right. I didn't know that, Chris, but I suppose with the state of the world at the moment, that's the easiest way to put it, anything of a sensitive nature, and I don't mean a spot on my chin, you know what I'm on about, they want to mask it, don't they? Do you know, in the Cold War, RAF Bempton, the passageways and the entrance to RAF Bempton were via a bungalow, just so that the surveillance planes, the Russian Bears and the other and the Eastern European planes that were flying around the area monitoring and observing, it was to mask the actual radar base. Whether it did or not, I don't know. So I'd not noticed that, mate, but there you go. And we've got another one here. Let's have a look. Andrew Wild, good to see you. Hi, Paul. Loved your last video, the crossroads at Walgate. Can I ask you, when people see cryptids in woodlands, do you think they might be frightened to take photographic evidence? Do you know, Andrew, I think they'd be too shocked to take photographic evidence. I really do. I mean, can you imagine seeing something like that? It's beyond belief. And that's why I always hold my hand up and say, anybody that wants to sit in this chat now and say, I don't believe it, I don't believe they've seen them, I'm not going to fall out with you. I'm not going to say, well, you better go. But the truth is that it is hard to bend your head around. But I've took that many reports from people now, good, honest people, and not just singulars, people who've seen these things, I won't say en masse, but, you know, as multiples, 2 and 3 people, then you know that they're seeing something that's highly unusual. And prime example, and it was not cryptid phenomena, and Neil, who's just coming to chat, I told him only tonight, myself and Chris Mack went to Speeton 2 weeks ago, and I told you this other week, but I'd not really gauged Chris's views on it at that time in depth. Walked all the way from Buckton through to Speeton. On the way back, I put the torch on. We were putting it on intermittently any road, and there's a figure. Chris thinks about 70 yards in front of us. Not some fur-covered bipedal creature, like a man. Now, we just walked all the way along those cliffs at the back of Buckton Hall, which will be about a mile away. But that's the only property within range of anything with torches, odd times powerful headlights. Now, powerful flashlights. People in those properties, for all we know, might think, is there somebody up there up to no good? Are they poaching or are they up to? So as we walked all the way down to Speeton and back, and I put the light on, and he's there stood against a post with his back to us because we couldn't see eyes or face or anything. It just looked like, I don't know, strange. It was just a head, shoulders, and a torso because I didn't see arms. I don't recall seeing arms or legs. And Chris said, I didn't realise at the time, he said to me, I bet it's Farmer. I bet he wonders what we're up to. So we just stood with light on him for a bit. Now, getting back to Andrew's question, why didn't I take a picture? Why didn't I put my body cam on? Why didn't I put the little GoPro on? Because I'd got the DJI in my hand. Why didn't I do all of those things? I'm supposed to be experienced, aren't I, and know what I'm doing. Little birds flying around my head. I was trying to work out what I'd seen or what I were looking at. And I'll be honest with you, it was difficult because I couldn't work it out. There was something not right about it. We had a doubt because I couldn't see arms and legs. You could clearly see the head, the shoulders, and it went down to the floor. It was a lot taller than posts. Chris is 6'2", and he estimates it's as tall as him. And I jokingly said, I'll put my light off and you watch. When I put it back on, it'll have gone. Put it back on, it had gone. And apparently, I don't see my own face. Chris said that the look of shock on your face. And I don't, and we did start filming and talking about it afterwards. And I said I were unnerved. Now, I know that's not what we're talking about as a cryptid, but I get what you're saying. And you'd think, wouldn't you, that with all the trail cams and with all, like you said, CCTV footage, although you're not going to get that in a woodland, but with all the cameras and the access that we've got to good quality photographic evidence now, even on standard phones, they can take good pictures, that we would have that photographic evidence. But I think when you see something like that, all of that sort of flies out at window. I really do. I've got no inclination to switch a camera on or film. That weren't my thoughts. I'll just have a look here. Let's have a look what we've got here. Question. The web sounds like the Willie Howe flight path. To see what you're saying. So Lee, who was moderating for us, thanks Lee. He says that the web that Ian's car drove into sounds like the Willie Howe flight path. I know what you're saying, but it's not not quite accurately, but I get what you're saying, and it'll make sense in a moment. So what Lee's referring to, back in probably 96, 97, over the burial mound of Willie Howe, this took place. There's a guy who contacted me, met him several times face to face, been to his home. He had a light aircraft that weren't equipped for night flying. It were a vintage aircraft. And on this day, he obviously daytime, he took his plane out and he wanted to fly up the coast to Whitby. I don't know how old the plane was, because you've got altitude, revs and something else on it. I don't understand. But there weren't many instruments on it. It weren't high-tech, full of sensors, as somebody used to say about the car. So he'd gone up the coast to Whitby. On the way back, he's gauging his time. He's thinking, I've got to get back. He's not thinking, I'm not equipped for night flying, but he's thinking, I've got to land. I can't fly in the dark. So he's flying along the coast and turns inland towards the burial mound of Willie Howe. And he can see the sun setting. And as he's looking at the sunset, for some reason, he turns the opposite way and he sees another sun, the second sun. That's what it looked like. Bright orange sphere. Makes you wonder how close it was, doesn't it, if it looked like the setting sun? So he's confused. It's there, and there's another sun there. And then all of a sudden, for all he can... He used a few analogies, but his best analogy for this was that his aircraft flew into a cobweb. He said it just flew into a cobweb. It just slowed down. It was like I'd flown into a cobweb. And he said, I looked at the meters on the plane. I'm not dropping altitude. I'm not rising. I'm traveling at the same speed, although I feel like I'm static in air. So, and there were another meter. I can't remember what he said. So that's his story. He says, and then the next thing he knew, he's flying in the darkness. And he's still over the burial mound, or won't be over it because the plane's traveling, isn't it? But he's around the area of Willie Howe, the burial mound, and he's flying in the darkness. He thought his options were, because you know, even at an high altitude, we can see the lights of the Humber Bridge. We know where we are. We can see that in the distance. So he's in an aircraft, so he's going to be able to see all the surrounding land. He said, I thought about flying onto Humberside Airport, radioing in and landing, but how do I explain it? How do I explain what happened? How do I explain that the aircraft's not equipped to fly at night? So that weren't an option, really. He ruled that one out quickly, but there was a tractor in a nearby field with lights on, and he knew there were some electrical cables, 37 kV cables, I think that's what he said. And he thought, if I can clear them, and he thought obviously he could, because he did, I'll land it in the field. And that's exactly what he did. So we've gone a long road round from Lee's question of it sounds like the Willie Howe web. but that's where we are. Let's have a look. Gareth Dixon. And did you get annoyed that our human eyes can... do you get annoyed that our human eyes can only see 5% of light spectrum? We miss so much that we get glimpses of other dimensions when they want us to. That could be how it works, Gareth. It's difficult, isn't it? It's hard to know. It is fascinating, though. I mean, obviously you know more about this than me, but when we put the cameras with the fixed cameras on the cliff tops, they've got a tiny neon light on the camera. And although this is not talking about 5% at light spectrum, if you look directly at it, you can't see it. But if you turn to the side, you can see it. You can see it in your peripheral. And a lot of times, you know, I think the light that Ian saw probably a month ago, well, it might be a bit longer now, but if he saw that in his peripheral vision and then turned and it was there and just literally switched off. So yeah, it's fascinating. I wouldn't say I get annoyed. It's just the way that we're kind of designed as human beings, isn't it? I know my hearing's getting worse, but I don't hear Mary when she's asking me to do things. But, let's have a look. But I never have done. Oh, yeah, is it? Is it giant spiders? I don't know. I don't know much about spiders. I think there's talk of giant spiders. Is it in Congo and other places? People allegedly reported giant spiders. I don't think I'd want to contact one or come in contact with one. I think we're just about done with questions here. Oh, let's have a look. Jamie and Slim Yin. Zenzin, good to see you, mate. And let's have a look. Oh, we know Gemma's there. Let's just do this. Let's have a look. That's brilliant, guys. Just 400 people. Hi, Paul. In 1997, woke in the early hours with an incredible thirst. Also, I hope these questions are not just about having a drink of beer because I don't read them beforehand. Also felt like I was being watched. I saw 3 lights in a triangle in the sky. Next morning, young daughter said she went out of the window with 2 beings. It's fascinating, mate, isn't it? It really is scary, but you know, obviously your daughter's safe. But I wonder how many more people have experienced things like that, or how many more younger people have experienced it and thought it was a dream. Yeah, I bet there's a lot more than we realize. I really do. I think in our lifetimes, I think that we probably all get touched by some aspect, some form of the phenomena, and you know, it's whether you choose to speak about it or whether you choose to remain silent, isn't it? Let's face it. And most people choose to remain silent, and a lot of that's fear of ridicule, you know, and little grins and sort of snide jokes behind your back. But I'm not going to deny the things that I've seen and experienced just because some people find it funny. You know, if people think it's a joke, get on with it. You know, I'm not bothered. Let's have a look. JG, could many more people have had encounters? Well, that's just pointing question, Jay. I think so. Yeah, I really do. I mean, I know we've just covered it, but I think there's far more people having strange and unusual experiences than we give credit for, isn't there? And what's funny is when you get talking to people, you know, and they say, "Oh, I know nothing's really happened to me," and then I wouldn't say all of a sudden, but then odd times they'll go, "But this happened," and then they go into a story. And it's fascinating. You know, we know that a lot of the time, I mean, throughout everybody's life, let's assume that 100%, we'll just call it 100%. There's probably only a 2 or 3% a percentage of strangeness that people experience. Some people might not remember any of it, but that 2 or 3%, don't you think it's fascinating that of all the things that you remember in your life, these profound experiences, that's why we're saying profound, stick with you. You know, the real sort of benchmarks in a person's life when you've had an experience of a truly unexplained nature, you know, and one that you can't put down to, I don't know, some kind of mundane weather effect or something. Yeah, but I think there's a lot more people just sat in silence. And that's what's good about channels like Truth Proof. It gives people the opportunity and what we call, you guys, a safe space to talk about these things. You know, I mean, we can't run through chat, sort of scrape 3, can we? Somebody's going to come in and give us a little bit of abuse because they're not going to like it. But between Lee and Gemma and Alison, when she's around, they're not tolerated. You know, you can say you don't believe it. It's, you know, nobody has to believe everything everybody's saying. But we're not here to be sort of shouted down, are we? Let's have a look. I've got a little story here that I'm going to tell people. Any road. Oh, it's Rick Allen. We'll just do this. The light is frightening because it's not natural. For a light to act with intelligence, light cannot do these things. It's technology. Yeah, I'd agree, it's Rick. You know, but the thing is, Rick, it's imparted a good feeling on us. And I know that you're adamant that there's, I think you are anyway, that there's nothing good to come from it. But we maybe that's the choice of whatever it is, the phenomena, the intelligence behind the light can manipulate our feelings. Because I know that those 7 people, me and the 6 people that were with me, and we all saw it, we all experienced it. It weren't something in the sky, it weren't something 50 feet away, it was with us. It hit Chris Mack in the belly. I could see it lighting him up. Chris could see Pete's hand lighting up. Nobody felt any fear. Nobody felt anything ominous about that experience. And who's to say it's all got to be bad, Rick? And I'm I'm not doing you a disservice, Rick, because you might not be saying that, but that's what I said. I did an interview with Rick in the week, and we like a preliminary one, and we're going to do a few more. And Rick's got some incredible things to share, and knowledge. It's good, interesting things that he will share. But we're gonna gather them and get them all how we want them, and then put them out there. And let's have a look. I went to Broxer Forest yesterday as well. Wow, that was incredible. Really enjoyed that. But and they've deforested a lot of it. But let's have a go. Can't stop in, can I? Let's have a look. I am still reading Albert Budden's book, right? UFOs, electromagnetic indictment. It makes for very interesting reading and does appear to cover all phenomena, but it doesn't explain the light forms. Well, thank you for telling us about that. And Albert Budden was a great friend of Philip Mantle. And I know Philip's not being very well. So if you're listening to this, Philip, or if you listen to it later, hope you're feeling better. So, yeah, that's a great book for somebody to read. And anyway, incidentally, if you want to read any good books, Truth Proof books, have a look at them. You can get them on truthproof.uk, which is our website, myself and Don. And you can also get them on Amazon Prime as Kindle download versions. The documentary that I made with Les Drake, Wolfland, that's on Amazon Prime. And anybody who wants to order a hard copy, you can get them on truthproof.uk via PayPal or eBay. No, it's up to you guys where you choose or if you choose. But there's 5 books, the 4 of them, and then The Night People, which is my own experience that way, my own experiences. Right, let's have a look. We've done this Albert Budden's book. I don't want to do that one again. Let's have a look here. We've got just nipped out for a smoke, only outside for 5 minutes, saw shooting stars. The things we just miss after dark. Yeah, Simon, we've been up on the cliff tops quite a bit this week, and we've noticed quite a lot of shooting stars and a lot of satellites. You know, it must be atmospherics and sky conditions that are allowing us to see them. And I think we saw 12 all at the same time. And if people think Paul's exaggerating, the people in chat who were with me, and I didn't count them, they were counting them. So that's interesting. I've never seen 12 all in one go, but there were a lot of movement up there other night. And we'll tell you what were interesting. They were all going in one direction, but as I'm looking up at the sky, I says, look at that one. It's going opposite way. And as we're all fixed on it, it just flared up like a big magnesium flare and went down, which were really nice to see, and probably just coincidence. Obviously, it's not waving at us, but, but there we go. Let's just have a look. Dizzy Dawn. Yeah. I will be at Flamborough Maybank holiday with Cryptid Kitty, Prince Boris. Is it still a hot spot? Do you know, who can say that things are seen around Eastern North Yorkshire, Dizzy? And I think it's look at draw. I mean, we go up there often, up and around those cliff tops and up into North Yorkshire as well. And bulk at time, you don't get to see much. I mean, you'd have to be very lucky, wouldn't you? Because let's face it, you've got 24 hours in a day, times that by 7, and we're not there all that time. We're just there, a little snapshot, 3-4 days a week, 2-3-4 days a week, and odd times we're fortunate enough to see something. I think you've more chance of seeing something strange and unusual. I wouldn't say Flamborough. East Yorkshire, let's just throw that net out. East Yorkshire, Speeton. If you want to see something unusual and you want to invest some time looking, go to Speeton. Seriously, go to Speeton, because out of all of those locations, and I'm not talking about the villages, by the way, I'm not talking about Bempton Village or Buckton or Speeton Village. I'm talking about along the coast where nobody frequents after dark. All of those locations become active. They really do. But out of all those locations, the most of the reports that are really interesting come from around the Speeton, Reeton, Hummonby, Bempton. All those areas are producing unexplained phenomena and really high strangeness. It's fascinating. So yeah, I hope you get to see something. Let's have a look. I asked for questions, didn't I? It's my fault. Paul, have you had any recent reports of cryptids or high strangeness in Gristhorpe, Lebbeston and Caton? Oh, I'm hoping you're going to tell me that you've got something to share. Gristhorpe, Leviston or Caton. There are reports, but what it is, Fred, a lot of the reports that I receive, it's great when I receive one that, I don't know, say, we saw this last night, or we experienced this, or 2 weeks ago, and that happens, but a lot of the reports are historic. So although they've been new to you guys and new to me, a lot of them have taken place years and years ago. I'll just read you this. This isn't from our area. So this guy, and I've called the report Crocodile's Belly. I'll have to have some reference, else I'd never remember which it were. I can't just put UFO because you've got loads of them. So it's not a massive story, but I find it fascinating what this nurse saw. And we're going back 40 years. So when talking about historic reports, it's 4 decades. So I'll read this to you, see what you think. Paul, this story was told to me probably 35 years ago. Firstly, I have to say I have always had an interest in the subject for at least 40 years. And that is how I managed to get the nurse who saw the craft to reluctantly tell me about her sighting. 35 years ago, my mother used to have treatment for a medical condition, which meant a nurse had to visit our home. It was during one of those visits that she told my mother what she had seen, to which my mother replied, "Tell Tony he's fascinated in the subject." I managed to speak with her a short time after her sighting, which really had affected her. This is what the nurse told me. So it's not in her words, obviously, he's relaying what he's been told. After working a night shift and driving home towards Skipton, I saw something that caught my attention in the nearby fields. She described seeing a shimmering light initially. She pulled up in disbelief to look at this blue and white shimmering light. When I stopped, she said it was a mixture of blue and white shimmering that almost looked transparent. Then it changed. Then she described seeing a massive object that was like a flattened egg shape. And when I say massive, she gave the comparison. The egg shape was as big as a football field. Can you imagine that? You know, people talk about these huge flying triangles, these huge black craft as big as football fields. And then, you know, there's thousands of reports, not just of the triangles, but things like what this man's describing. Thousands and thousands of them. So they're either all liars or people are telling the truth. That's not man-made tech, is it? Right, they say, right, she described massive object like a flattened egg shape. When I say massive in comparison, she gave the egg-shaped craft was as big as a football field, and it was stationary and pulsating. Okay? There's only another page of this, don't worry. Right. She watched for a minute or so until the craft tilted on end silently. Imagine that. Then its undercarriage lit up and she revealed what she described as looking like the underside of a crocodile's belly. That's fascinating. It had a faint yellow grid-like pattern to it, and it lit up, but it was all very faint. She said there was no sound coming from the object, but she felt a vibrating sensation inside her body. Then, with the blink of an eye, there was a split-second flash, and it was gone. All right, let's have a look. It was gone. The flash was so fast that the craft had gone up instantly. She looked up immediately, and where it had been, she saw in that split second something fading out. That's when the fear set in. She managed to gather her senses and drive home, but she was scared to death. She simply couldn't believe what she had seen. At the time, she lived with her mum and dad, and she woke them up to tell them what she had seen in tears. She was getting very emotional at the time she was telling me about it. She was more relieved that I believed her than anything else. Paul, all these years, this has interested me, and this story has stayed with me. But it's fascinating, isn't it? Can you imagine seeing something like that? I don't think it'd ever leave you, would it? And you can understand why some people wouldn't want to talk about it. This lady had told his mum, probably not realizing that her son's interested in the subject, and obviously she's told this guy, and she got emotional talking about it. I find these things fascinating. Right. If there's any questions about that, I hope I get to it but we shall see. Scotch mist. What are your thoughts on the American retired general who's gone missing? He worked on top secret UFO stuff. I don't know much about it, Scotch. What are your thoughts on it, more importantly? And I know we're not... Oh, it's asking me to update. Don't do that, Paul. No, thanks. Worked on top secret. Is it a coincidence? I guess we'll never know. But there'll be plenty of people who will form opinions and want to speculate. But I don't think I should be speculating on my thoughts of what's happened to him. He might turn up, yeah. I hope he does, but I think he's been missing quite a while, hasn't he? It's running into weeks, isn't it? And I don't know much about it, but I have read a little bit about it, and it does seem strange in the advent of alleged UFO disclosure, and somebody there, retired general, who's worked on this stuff, and he's gone missing. I don't know. You might have more thoughts on it, you guys, than I have. So there we go. Just give me a minute, see if there's any more questions. I bet they're in. Let's have a look. Any report along the coast from Scarborough through to Robin Hood's Bay and Whitby? Red Fred. There's loads of reports, Scarborough to, and Port Mulgrave and around Skinning Grove, even higher up. There's lots and lots of reports. And not necessarily just, and I don't know whether it's UFO reports you're referring to, but actual cryptid type sightings as well, which is fascinating. Yeah, loads and loads of reports from up that way, and it never seems to stop. And it tells you something, doesn't it? It does tell you that the area, the location that we're in, or I'm sort of in at the moment, well, being for foreseeable future, it's rich in unexplained activity. When I went to Broxer Forest yesterday, you know, I walked through where the guys had their experience, the people in Wolflands, Jim and Steve and the other guy who wouldn't go and film. And I walked through that area, and a lot of it's just been deforested. But interestingly, that little area, and it's just by luck, it's not, there's no other reason, but that's still intact. And it just about runs out as well. There's probably a couple of 100 yards that's probably be gone next time I go. But it was weird stood there, you know. I actually, after spending nights in that forest with those guys who'd seen that thing, it was interesting, stood there sort of surveying it and thinking, you know, it might not be like this ever again. You know, I filmed a bit of it and just let the Bobster have a run around. Like I said, I was probably well within the realms of being protected because I'd got my dog with me. But there you go. Let's have a look. All right, Dave Barker, good to see you, Dave. Do you think you feel and see more being in a group than when you used to go on your own? No, I don't, to be honest with you. As a collective, something clicked that night when there was 7 of us. And I've said it to lads loads of times. What was the ingredient where we actually, it changed from seeing lights, you know, close around us, little lights that flash up in the grass. Everybody's seeing them. That's what's happening at the moment. And seeing lights in the sky and strange shapes of people just in the form of dark shadows, all that's interesting. And we've seen all of that. But as a collective, 7 of us, we had that experience. And I keep saying, what was the ingredients? What were we doing that night? Were the thought process different? And it's difficult because I do realize that I'm looking here and there's 410 people in chat. Some of you guys won't know what I'm talking about. Some of you will, and we're thinking, God, he's still going on about that. But you don't realize it was so special. As people who investigate and look into this, I suppose in any genre of anything that you do, even if you're a train spotter or whatever you do, it's like to see the perfect train is the Holy Grail. We got visited by a light. Wow, some people go, oh yeah, just a light. It was there. It was with us, within the circle of people we were in. I know that's not, and so Dave, to answer your question, we're obviously interested in the collective there, but I do feel that sometimes it's good just to isolate yourself and just try and put your mind out there and see whether you can connect with something. I mean, you're in an ideal place, Dave. I'm not sure where you are, but you're in an ideal place to view the skies and just sort of absorb it all, even in your back garden. Well, you know you are, and you've seen some incredible stuff yourself. And I don't know. I suppose it varies. I suppose you've got to have the right group of people. I suppose it's like anything. You just know when it's off. You know, let's just take it away from paranormal and jump into a scene where you're just out in a bar. And there can be a group of people and you're all having a great time. And then one person can come along and it just kills atmosphere. It's gone. There's nothing happening. You've just sort of, life and soul at parties just killed it. But anyway, let's just jump from that, see if there's any more. Let's have a look. Mark Anderson, let's have a look here. Hi, Paul, have you had any sightings? No, I haven't. In Angus, Scotland, there's a researcher found a UFO hotspot in Arbroath. Brilliant, Mark. And I said it other week, Mark, and we'll have to get you back on to share a few sightings. So if this guy wants to let you talk about any of his, or if he wants to come on with you or anything, I'm sure we could work it out. And it would be interesting. Yeah. Right, here's Fred again. Any more reflections or thoughts on beings you saw on the way home? No, mate. 1970. So you've got Fred 70. Oh, New Year. We're going back to 1970, Fred. You know, I mean, it's a long time since, and I've thought it out till I've exhausted it. And I have no idea what that were about, just any more than I have of anything, any more than that light visitation. And I've no fear in saying that. You know, none of us are experts in this subject, but there's got to have been a reason. And but I wish I knew it. And if Craig Bryant don't come on, because he said he was going to pop on, we might have a little talk about that, but we shall see. Let's have a look. Scottish Paranormal. Do you think Stakston Wall tries to attract or manifest the phenomena? Tries to attract. I'm not sure that any of these military bases try to attract anything, Chris. But it's a fact that unexplained phenomena seems to gravitate towards military bases. Why that is, I don't know. Is it because of the high power energy output in some of them? I don't know. You know, take Rendlesham Forest, take Bempton, the old RAF base. A lot of strange stuff associated and connected around there. You know, I think it was 63 when the craters, and you hear me banging on about these craters that appeared in 1963 all over the UK, and the one at Flamborough, the Hood crater. But what people didn't know at the time is that there were a guy who worked for an earth haulage company, an earth moving company, who'd also found another one. I went and spoke to him. I went to his home. I don't know, they were 89 or 90 when I spoke to him. And that were found close to RAF base. You know, I pegged it out. It was 63 foot. And I think it were about 8 foot deep, because I run a string line across it and measured it and did everything. It's filled in now. But that's not because of me. It's just filled in. But it had gone all them years without being. So, but I don't know. There's got to be some reason. Could it be that certain aspects or certain parts of the unexplained are interested in what we're doing, and a military base is interesting? I really don't know. And what are your thoughts, Chris? Anyway, let's have a look. Mr. Linford, let's have a look here. Paul, your hearing is spot on. When the sweets come out, listen to him. Yeah, you know, we're all guilty, and when we go up there, you know, and we take a few sweets up and a few treats, and like I said, my hearing ain't that good, but I do manage to. I'm like that little dog, you know. And when I hear a little bit of a rattle as paper, and if it's little treats, then yeah, I'm all ears, should I say? Yeah, you're right there, Ian. So there we go. Wish I'd not read that one. Let's have a look. Bob Sykes. Let's have a look here, Bob. What's your favourite aspect of the paranormal? Good God, Bob. I don't know. I think it's all interesting. What about you guys? I mean, because we're all here for different purposes. Some people are just avidly interested in the subject and want to experience something. Some people have experienced it and you're searching for answers. I would have thought that years ago it was the UFO subject with me. Without a doubt, I was, and it still is. I'm fascinated by the subject of UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them. But whilst writing first book, and that the newspaper kindly put an article in saying I were wanting stories of the strange and unusual, or words to that effect, the people that were writing in, I got a couple of people writing in talking about a fur-covered bipedal creature from Flixton, hence the excuse me, the Flixton werewolf. So that, you know, the cryptids are fascinating, and it's something I never thought I would be interested in ever. And you know, we should have brought a glass of water. It's something I never thought I'd be interested in, but they are absolutely fascinating, because there's so many people, just like with the UFO subject, from all walks of life, who claim to have seen these things that simply just should not exist, just defy explanation. So it's sort of like talking about something from a horror film. And if you jump across the pond, you go to America and you look at these forests on the Appalachian Trail and go to Alaska and places like that, and you're reading and hearing people describing much the same. So they're touching all parts of the world. So either everybody's mistaken, everybody's lying, or we've got to attach a little bit of truth to what people are seeing and experiencing. I'd go with that. Let's attach some truth to it myself. And not just because I want to, but, you know, I'm not going to deny somebody's experience just because some people can't bend their head around it. Look at Night People. You know, that's a book about my own experiences. That's probably why I'm so ingrained and entrenched in subject myself. And either I'm lying or I'm telling the truth. I know. But it's touched all members of my family. Whatever it was that were interacting, it's encompassed everybody. Eventually, it's drawn everybody in. And that's not because I'm talking about it. That's what it's done, and that's what the phenomena does. And it's almost as though the more your eyes are open, the more that the more they see. That don't sound too simplistic, but it's a fact that the more you're open to the subject, the more you're likely to see. And I don't mean gullible. We're not looking at sort of dogmen and werewolf type things that we draw a picture around with a pen or with some kind of marker on internet and say, look at it, it's there in them trees, can't you see it? We've got loads of pictures of that kind of what I'd call rubbish, or seeing Jesus in a slice of toast. There's not. We're on about proper experiences, but a lot of it, hence the subtitle of the first book, is The Truth That Leaves No Proof, because there's next to no proof about what we're talking about. Yet you guys in chat, 420 people in chat. You guys in chat, I would think for the most part, a lot of you have had an experience, a profound experience. You can retell it. You can relive it. You can see it in your mind. That's where it's fixed. It's fixed in your mind. The day that we create a machine that can actually read and then portray on a screen our thoughts or our memories, not just the audible ones that people recreate, will be the day that we might be able to lift some proof out of people that's actually tangible. And it might happen, you know, it's daft as it sounds. Probably won't be in my lifetime, but who can say? Let's have a look. Fred's got some questions here, haven't you? Paul, any more thoughts or reflections on what you saw? Oh, we've done that one, Fred. It's just come back round. Sorry, Fred. All right, let's have a look. John Paul. Paul, on Walgate, I spent a lot of time in childhood in the woods up and around there. Interesting to think that Walgate and Danesdyke yeah, absolutely. Same connection, yet same line, maybe. Yeah, I agree. And I don't know how you'd feel, John. Obviously, you don't have to, but I'd love to get you on here and share some of those experiences that you've had. I've met this fella, and we've spent a bit of time in some locations and profound experiences. And it comes from art. That I believe that John's speaking honestly, really honestly, about the incredible things that he's seen and experienced. And one of them, John, in town, just on outskirts of town, Westgate Park, I think they called it, on the outskirts of Bridlington, where it began for you. Now, I'll not go into detail because John might not want me to, but, you know, if we might get John talking about this. And fascinating, absolutely fascinating. If you talk about people who've seen and experienced highly unusual phenomena, you're looking at somebody that has. Let's have a look. Clifftop Pete, there you are, Pete. I've already said it, but I hope you're feeling okay, mate. Can't wait to get you back up there. I miss you swearing. Any road. Let's have a look. My experiences as a child from memory was about 60/40 dreams, physical. So who knows what is actually real? Yeah, you make a great point. You really do. It's somebody's contacted me. I don't know, today or yesterday, and they were talking about the dreams that they'd had, and then looking down at the feet and feeling the cold and feeling the damp, and it almost took it out of a dream. They didn't know how to sort of separate the dream from the reality, because they were getting those kind of experiences as though they were actually outside. It's quite frightening dreams as well, if they were dreams. You know, I don't know if he's listening to this, but on cliff tops on what day would it have been? Wednesday. A guy called Michael came up with his partner and his son, and quite by chance, I've been speaking to Michael now for about 8 or 9 years, and we've kept in touch continuously. But I'd never met him, and he arrived on cliff tops just out of the blue. Didn't know we were going to be up there. Just doing some little tour with his partner and his son, and he proceeded. I knew the stories, but he proceeded to tell us a few of the strange experiences that he's had in his life, which were absolutely fascinating. And I spoke to him, or I messaged him today, and I asked him if he'd come on Truth Proof and share some of those experiences with us, and he says he will. So that's going to be good. Honestly, that is really going to be good. You've heard me talk about what I termed as the hairy Chewbaccas. The man who experienced that strange night where this fur-covered being entered the tent that he were in with his family and touched him on the forehead and knocked him out, and then carried him across some fields with his family. Well, this is the man. So hopefully, I'll not talk about it now, because hopefully a few weeks' time, we'll get him on here to share that with you guys. And Ian were there. I mean, Ian were fascinated. Just, you know, you couldn't deny the fact that this guy really, you could feel the emotion as he were talking about it. So what we got here then? Let's just have a look. Right. Zena. Hi, Zena. Paul, do you think they are using... I don't know. Do you know, Zena, I wish I had more knowledge of things like this, Project Bluebeam and all of the, you know, the names for these projects, but I find it hard to keep up with what I'm doing myself. But so I'm not discounting what you're saying, by the way, either. They could be, but I don't know enough about it, and to say that's what they're doing. So apologies for that. Let's have a look here. The Travis Walton case seemingly had a benevolent slant to it. Is there any linking, at least some of your experiences may have too? Do many others report more positive experiences to you? Yeah, there are positive experiences, and that's what's good, Tim, because my experiences weren't good. From a child to 14 years old, it were absolutely terrifying. But then equally so, there's other people that have had brilliant experiences. But I've always said, I wonder if it's the same intelligence that's doing it. Seriously, I wonder if it's the same intelligence that's responsible for all of these experiences. And they're just sort of, I don't know, getting what they want out of the certain chosen individual. And maybe they are. I can see that I've got Craig here. I'll pull Craig in a moment, but I don't know. There were nothing good out of what I saw and experienced, but equally so, there's other people that have had absolutely brilliant experiences. So, you know, I'm not going to knock that or discount that. I might throw Craig in at deep end, you know, as well, because I'm going to have to go and get a drink in a minute, people, because unusually I didn't bring one. So if we've got some questions and I've missed them, because I'll go right down, because and there are questions here, but you might want to ask Craig some questions. So we shall, and if there's any questions that are kind of open, so I'm going to bring Craig Bryant in now from Paranormal Pendle podcast, and let's hear a few things of what he's got to share. I just want to put this up so I can get that one off. That's it. Okay. Hello, Craig. How are you doing?
Hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And I've just
I heard all that by the way. I heard all that.
Yeah, you heard all that. We're going to put you in at the deep end. Well, I'm just going to nip and get a drink in a moment, Craig. But
No worries.
you know, we spoke today. I'm just telling our listeners we spoke today because I'm going to do a podcast with you tomorrow, aren't I? But I don't know when you'll be putting it out. And I said, well, do you want to come on for half an hour tonight? Tell people what you're about. Point them in direction of Paranormal Pendle, and more importantly for our listeners, truth proofers, tell us a little bit about yourself. Go on then.
Well, nothing like chucking me in at the deep end.
You're a bit quiet there, Craig.
Am I a bit quiet? How's that? Is that better?
They'll tell us. Go on.
Is that better? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Let's let me just double check my mic level. Hang on a sec. So, okay. So I'm based in the northwest of England. I actually live very close to Pendle Hill. So I'm about 10 minutes drive away from Pendle Hill.
Right.
The podcast has been going now for probably about 3 years, something like that, maybe 4 years. It's called Paranormal Pendle. I do it twice a month. I'm not as prolific as your good self, Paul.
Lee says there's an echo in the sound.
Right, okay. There might be a bit of feedback then. Let's just see. I don't normally have too many problems with this mic, but anyway. Is that any better?
I can't tell now at the moment. I can hear you okay, but that's just what Lee said. But no, let's just carry on. And if I've wound it right down, I've gone through all them questions, so we'll just know in a moment if people are. No, he's actually really loud.
Yeah, it's I've been
a bit too hot.
I've been called loud quite a few times.
Have you been called hot?
Not for about 20 years, mate. No.
Right. So what you at then, Craig? What's been happening?
Well, I've just been going along with the podcast. I have written a couple of books over the years. They are on Amazon. If you just look for Craig Bryant, you'll find them. They're both based around the town that I grew up in, which is a town called Accrington, which is in East Lancashire. It's sort of in between Blackburn and Burnley. Some of your older listeners may remember a certain milk advert back in the 1970s for Accrington Stanley, the football team. So that's the town that I grew up in, and I lived there till I was about into my late 30s, about 37, 38, and then I met my wife, and I moved out to where I am now in the Ribble Valley near Clitheroe. So, as I say, very close to Pendle Hill. So I've written a couple of books. They're both personal experiences and also experiences of other people that I've met over the years. The reason why I started writing the books, they're actually called The Shadow Man of Accrington and also The Black Monks of Accrington. So they're both on Amazon. I also have a YouTube channel as well as the podcast, which is on Spotify and Amazon and everybody else. The reason why I started writing the books was because over the years I'd met so many people who had really strange experiences, mainly paranormal, although I have spoken to people who've had equally strange UFO encounters as well. Mainly paranormal stuff though, mainly poltergeists, ghosts, hauntings, that sort of thing. Well, and also sort of because myself and my family members have had various different strange experiences over the years. My mother-in-law lived in a very haunted farmhouse, which I can tell you a little bit about. Some very interesting stories about that. She actually had a Katrina dog kennels based at this farmhouse, but it was a 16th century farmhouse, late 1500s. So it was actually one of the oldest remaining buildings still standing in the whole of Lancashire. So it was a very old property.
Well, tell us a little bit then of the strangeness that's occurred there.
Okay, well, there were a couple. My wife Sarah, her late grandfather had a very strange experience. They were actually looking after the house whilst my mother-in-law and stepfather were away on holiday, and Sarah's granddad had poured himself a whiskey into a large, the sort of heavy crystal whiskey tumbler glasses that you get, very, very heavy, thick base.
Yeah.
And he put it on the sideboard, and there was himself and Sarah's grandmother in the room. It was like sort of the living room, the sitting room. And they both witnessed this glass raise itself, levitate off the sideboard, and then drift across the room towards them, and then suddenly stop in midair and just drop and fall onto the floor. There were also other experiences that they'd had as well. They heard a lot of doors slamming, a lot of footsteps. They particularly used to hear footsteps up on the first floor landing, and they could never work out what they were because they sounded like very heavy boots on stone floors, but they were actually it was wooden flooring up there, as it was throughout large parts of the house, although there were stone floors in certain parts of the farm. When they came to do some renovation and they actually took the floorboards up, there was a stone flagging underneath, and they could hear in the middle of the night these very heavy, almost like hobnail boots that used to make a real clanging metallic on stone sound, and it was like whatever it was literally stomping up and down this landing. And it used to stop outside Sarah's sister's room when the children were living there, and it used to bang on the door. And Sarah's sister got so used to it that she just used to sit up in bed and shout, "Oh, bugger off, leave me alone," and it used to go away.
That's interesting, Craig, isn't it? That, and I think somebody said they can hear my voice through your mic. I can hear it as well. That's interesting, Craig. That it's probably a bit too near to. I don't know.
Is that any better?
Probably, yeah. Probably a bit better. They'll tell us, won't they? But it's almost like it's a tracing in time when you're hearing those boots, the hobnail boots walking about on the stone floor. But then there's that implied intelligence,
yeah,
that reacts when your sister-in-law shouts. Yeah, it's strange.
It's not a sort of replay, or it wasn't a sort of replay type spirit or ghost. It was obviously, there was some sort of intelligence there. And in fact, when they put the farmhouse up for sale, whenever they had people who came round to view the farmhouse, all the electrics would mysteriously go off. And Sarah's stepdad used to have to go into it was a very old wiring, obviously, in there, but he used to have to go in and change the fuses every single time. So whenever anybody came round, or whenever the estate agent came round, all the lights had just fused, and he'd have to go off down to the outhouse and he'd have to change all the fuses, and then it'd be working again. But it happened on a regular basis. So obviously, whoever it was that was in there didn't want them to sell the property. So that was something that I put in the book, because I thought that was really interesting. As I say, I've spoken to Sarah's sister about it. Spoke to her grandfather when he was alive. He told me about that particular story. And there were other people I've spoken to that I met over the years as well.
Thanks, Craig, because we've got a question here, and we might as well put this up. Phil Turner. Hi, Craig. I've recently moved to West Bradford near Clitheroe. Is there much activity around that area, do you know?
Well, I know West Bradford very well. It's just down the road. I'm in Chapman. So it's just down the road. And in fact, if you see a very middle-aged, overweight, sweaty jogger going past on a Saturday morning, it's me, because I usually jog through West Bradford.
Craig, can I hand this over to you for a minute? I'm just going to grab a cold drink.
Yeah, sure, no worries, mate. Yeah, no, I'll carry on. So, West Bradford, do I know of anything particular in that area? I don't actually, to be honest. Although I'm sure there will be, because there are quite a lot. I mean, there's a lot of old properties in that village. It's lovely village. Is I think that's one. Is that the one with the higher book? Is that the pub? It's got the stream running through it, or is that Waddington? That's Waddington, isn't it? I'm thinking of Waddington. No, yeah, West Bradford is just up the road from here. I don't know of any particular sort of haunted places or interesting stories, but I'm sure there will be. Just let me have a think. Paul's landed me right on the spot here, so I apologise. I'm winging it a bit. In fact, I can't see. I'll see if I
It's okay, Craig. We're all right. We're all good.
No, we're back. There's still a bad echo, apparently. Somebody said.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're going to be able to correct it now. But so let's just think. Right, we've done that one. We've done that one. We've just heads fell off a little bit. Big fan of Paranormal Pendle. Ancestors from Pendle 1600s. Does the witch tourism annoy you?
Okay. First of all, thank you for being a big fan. That's brilliant. I really do get a kick out of people telling me that they enjoy the podcast. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. Does witch tourism annoy me? Yes, the hell out of me. It really, really does piddle me off, shall we say. I mean, there's two aspects to it, really. I mean, I don't begrudge local businesses sort of hanging the hat on the Pendle Witch story and sort of using that to drum up business, because at the end of the day, we are going to get a lot of tourism around here. It's understandable. People want to come, they get interested in the story, they want to come and sort of soak up the atmosphere of the place. So I understand that. And I don't begrudge local businesses and pubs, sort of making a decent living off the back of that, because at the end of the day, the businesses are struggling around here as they are, everywhere. And if they can sort of make a little bit extra out of the witch tourism thing, I don't mind that at all. If anybody ever comes here, you need to go to a place called New Church in Pendle. It's interesting for a couple of things. One is there is a fantastic little shop called Witches Galore. If anybody's ever been there, the lady that runs it is an absolute riot. Her and her husband, and they sell all sorts of stuff. A lot of really interesting books, actually, on witchcraft and the occult and all that sort of stuff, and lots of little mugs with pictures of witches on and all that sort of stuff. I often pop in and buy a mug when I'm going past. So yeah. And the other interesting thing about New Church is that there is a grave in the graveyard, which is allegedly of one of the Pendle witches, Alice Nutter. It isn't actually. There is the name Nutter on there. It's probably one of her relatives, but unfortunately, it's 99% not her. Simply because she was executed up at Lancaster with the others, and the bodies were disposed of up at Lancaster Castle, or just out in the grounds outside of Lancaster Castle. And we know that they were all buried in unmarked graves in unconsecrated ground. So it's unlikely that Alice Nutter is actually buried at New Church. But nonetheless, it's definitely a place worth visiting, because it's quite a spooky old graveyard. I do have a video on my YouTube channel, actually, one of the earlier ones that I did, of just having a wander around and just talking about the graveyard. The thing that really annoys me about witch tourism as such are these organisation or these groups, these witch tour, ghost tours, if you know what I mean, that sort of charge people extortionate amounts of money to sort of take around on tourism.
Is a lot of it hype then?
There is, yeah, there is. I mean,
without slandering anybody. I mean, do you find that there's a lot of it that they're building something up to be and exaggerating the claims?
Yes, very much so. There was a very Got to be careful what I say here because I've had a run-in with somebody about this.
Don't say it.
No. A very famous sort of group that do stuff for Amazon. And they have 2 or 3 different locations, one of which they had at a farmhouse near Pendle, and they claimed that it was haunted by 2 of the Pendle witches, and they kept making these spurious claims. They've actually left it now. They don't operate it anymore. I only found out recently, but they were making very spurious claims about a couple of the Pendle witches, John and Jane Bulcock, who apparently lived there. It was their farmhouse. They had absolutely no evidence for these claims whatsoever. And in fact, we know that the Bulcocks didn't live anywhere near there. They lived in a completely different part of the area. So,
without being too graphic, then, Craig, is it still active with sort of occult practice and witchcraft? The area?
I'm sure it is. I don't know of any particular instances. There was, back in the sort of 80s and 90s, there was a spate of articles in local newspapers about some strange things that were going on around here in the area. There were claims of witches' covens and meeting at midnight of the summer solstice and dancing around the fields naked and all that sort of stuff. There were reports of that. And in fact, an old friend of mine was a police officer who was actually called out. He told me once to a group of people who were cavorting around in a field with very little on, practicing all sorts of stuff. It did go on. I don't hear about things like that now.
No, it's not. I suppose it's not all necessarily bad, is it?
No.
People talk about witchcraft, and I think a lot of people sort of think everything's taking place under a dark stone, and it's not all bad practice.
So, no, a lot of things about witches and witchcraft. My wife Sarah's a history teacher, and she takes a lot of interest in local history as well as other aspects of history that she has to teach. And she was talking about the fact that a lot of it was sort of natural. Back in the 17th century, a lot of it was wise women, basically. And it was a lot of natural remedies. And, if people had a headache, they would go and see the wise woman in the village. Or if they wanted a love potion, they would go to the wise woman in the village.
I won't go to my wise woman in house.
My wise woman's next door, actually.
Listening to this.
She's in her office next door. So a lot of it was fear that was sort of stoked up by the fact that James I was very obsessed with witches. He'd attended some witch trials in Scotland, the Berwick witch trials, which are also a very famous set of trials that happened before the Pendle witch trials, and he was obsessed with finding witches, and obviously there was a lot of religious connotations as well. So he was obsessed with finding Catholics who didn't go to Protestant religious services, and so a lot of the Catholics used to practice in secret. And there's a school of thought that some of these people that were accused of witchcraft were in fact practicing Catholics who did it behind closed doors. The local magistrates that obviously they were across the whole country, across the whole of England, but the magistrates were very much stoked up by James I to go out and find people that they could accuse of witchcraft. Yeah, and that's basically what happened. The whole story started when you had 2 families who were basically sort of at war with each other over who had the best areas for begging. The roads where most of the people used to travel, most of the businessmen used to travel. The guy who was the first one who was originally supposedly suffered an attack by one of the accused witches, a guy called John Law. He was a merchant, and he was travelling back from Halifax back to where he lived in the borough of Pendle, which is this area, because it's not just Pendle Hill; it's quite a big area.
Yeah.
Forest of Pendle, as it's known, and he came across one of the old women who was begging. I think it was Demdike, if I remember correctly. There was Demdike, who was the matriarch of one family, and there was Anne Whittle, who was also known as Old Chattox. She was the matriarch of the other family, and he was bewitched. Apparently, he basically had a heart attack and fell off his horse just at the wrong time for Demdike, who sort of, because he wouldn't buy something off her or give her some money, she sort of, put a bit of a curse on him, or she said she was going to put a curse on him. And his horse trotted off down the road, and about 50 yards down the road, he had a massive coronary and fell off his horse. And that's basically how it all started. So yeah, it was a disagreement over who had the rights to the best areas to beg, because that's how they used to make the living. They were very poor. They were very at the bottom of the social ladder, in effect.
Yeah.
And that's basically how it all started. And the local magistrate, a guy called Roger Knoll, got wind of this. He wanted to curry favour with James I, as all of his contemporaries did. And so a lot of the stuff was probably cooked up. It was probably, when they were interviewed, they sort of took what they said, twisted it around and put ideas into their heads. And you've also got to remember these were very, very uneducated people.
Yeah.
And certainly Jeanette Device, who was the young girl who stood up in court and testified against her entire family, she had spent some time living at Noel's house prior to the trial at Lancaster, and so you've got to wonder what things were put into her head,
influenced,
manipulated, and promised all sorts of stuff. And she was the only one that went free. All the rest of the family, including a young brother and her sisters and a mother, were all hanged. So
must have been awful.
Yeah.
There's a question here, Craig. Craig, I believe static electricity triggers the stone tape theory. What do you think?
Take a quick slurp. I think I'm coming down with a bit of man flu, so my voice is going. Stone tape theory. Well, I do hold to stone tape theory. I do believe that energy can be stored in stones or in buildings or in places, especially if there's been something traumatic that's happened. I think a lot of it is emotional energy, which could in fact, manifest itself as static electricity or something similar, which then gets absorbed into a stone or a place or a building or an area or an object, and then sort of replays itself over time. That's definitely something that I would agree with you. I think it definitely can.
Okay, let's have a look. We've got another one here. Craig, how did you get into the paranormal stroke supernatural world? I'm trying to talk quiet because I can hear my voice as I'm talking to you.
Really good question, actually. Hiya, thanks for that. Well, I've always been interested. My maternal grandfather was a storyteller. He used to love telling stories. And I grew up as a child in the 1970s, so that's giving my age away somewhat. I've got a significant birthday this year that I'm not looking forward to. But during the 70s, if anybody's on here tonight who was around at the time, you'll remember that we used to have a lot of power cuts, and we used to have a lot of sort of like 3 days where you had electricity, and then the rest of the week you didn't. And the power used to go off at certain times at night, and everybody used to sit around by candles and what have you. So I used to spend a lot of time with my maternal grandparents, and they had it was a sort of 2 up, 2 down typical. You'd call it now a weaver's cottage, but it was a terrace. Basically, it was a terraced house, 2-bed terraced house. And they used to live in the back room where they had the kitchen, and there was like a big range cooker that they had before they had it removed when North Sea gas became a thing. If you can remember that far back, they had all their old ranges ripped out, didn't they, and gas fires put in. And in fact, now people are going out looking for ranges and putting them back in and ripping gas fires out. So it's come full circle.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. But I used to sit in front of this old range cooker with all the candles going and everything, and with my granddad. And my granddad used to tell me ghost stories. I mean, I'd only be like sort of 6, 7, 8 years old, something like that. But he used to just tell me ghost stories, and he used to tell me local legends and just spooky stories, basically. And I suppose really that's sort of how I got interested in it from an early age. And I remember buying a book when I was about 10 years of age. I've actually got a copy of it. It's not the original one I've got, but I found a copy of it on eBay. It's somewhere behind me in the very messy bookshelf that you can see. And it's called Lancashire Ghosts by somebody called Kathleen Eyre. I don't think it's in print anymore now. It's only quite a thin book, but it sort of had ghost stories about like all the haunted houses and stately homes and boggarts and poltergeists and all that sort of thing, ghostly animals as well, and all that sort of stuff. And so I used to really enjoy reading that when I was younger. And then I sort of, as you get older, you get into your teens and other things take over, you sort of don't think about it quite as much. And then I had a few experiences, one in particular when I was in my late teens, where I saw what we now call a shadow man or a shadow figure.
Tell us about that, please.
The Hat Man, as it's now called. Yeah, I mean, at the time, there wasn't really a name for this sort of phenomenon. We're going back to the sort of 1980s, and it was only a little bit later, really, that people started coining the name Hat Man or Shadow Man and sort of recognised it as a thing that a lot of people see. But I was actually working in a club. I was working behind the bar. I was probably about 18, 19, something like that. It was the old Conservative club in Accrington, which is not there anymore. Now again, this is something that I've wrote a lot about in the book, the first book. And basically, I was working behind the bar one evening, and there was nobody else in. It was midweek. We had used to get people coming in to play snooker because there was a snooker room and a couple of, I think it was 3 full-size snooker tables in there. So you used to get people coming in, members of the club, and they used to play snooker and what have you. And then usually during the week, by about 10 o'clock, I mean, this is when we had more rigid sort of serving time, serving hours. We had to close the bar at sort of like 10:30 dead sort of thing. So during the week it was very quiet, and I was just about to start tidying the bar up and pulling the shutters down and calling it a day because there was nobody in there. The only other person that was in the club at the time was the guy who was the steward. There's a bloke called Bernard, and I knew that he was upstairs in one of the upstairs bars, just doing whatever he was doing, stocking shelves or whatever. And I saw this figure at the end of the bar, and it was a very tall, very thin, translucent, not transparent, translucent. I could see through it, but there was it's like a sort of filmy, sort of way of looking at it, if you know what I mean. I could see through it, but there was something that was substantial there, but it was not. Yeah, opaque, I think is probably the best way to describe it. Like frosted glass, if you know what I mean. It's very tall and thin, no features at all. It was just like an outline, a sort of black outline, with a very tall hat on, basically. It looked like a very tall hat. And I remember just standing there and looking at it and thinking to myself, that's a bit odd. As you do when you're 18 or 19 and you don't really have much fear of anything, and you don't sort of expect to see something like that. And it sort of stayed there for about maybe 10-15 seconds, which when you're looking at it and you're trying to work out what it is, quite a long time. And then it just disappeared. And this was in the days before mobile phones. So this is, obviously, we're going back quite a few years. We used to have an internal phone system. So I knew that Bernard was upstairs on the third floor boy. So I grabbed the internal phone and rang upstairs, and he picked the phone up. And I said, I've just seen something weird down here. And he said, what have you seen? And I said, well, I don't know, so I can't describe it. I said, really weird. I said, can you come down? I'm a bit, so at this point, I was getting a bit freaked out. And he said, right, I'll be down in a minute. So he slammed the phone down. And about 30 seconds later, I could hear him stomping down the stairs. And he came into the bar and he went, right, he said, you've seen it as well, have you? And I looked at him and he said, you've seen it, haven't you? That like a strange shadowy figure sort of thing. And I said, yeah. How did you know? He said, oh, I've seen it. He said, loads of people have seen it who've worked down here. He said, are you going to jack it in and not come back? Because that's what most people do. He said, most people see it and decide they're not coming to work back here anymore. And I said, well, no. I said, it's just a bit freaky. I said, what is it? And he said, I've got no idea. He said, but I've seen it and so have loads of other people. And that, I never saw it again, but it stayed with me for many, many years. And then about 10 years ago, I suddenly started, for some reason, thinking about it. And I started speaking to people randomly who were having all these really weird things that were going on in their life, really strange, ghostly experiences. And it was at that point I thought, do you know what? I'm going to put all these stories together in a book. And if I don't sell any copies, I don't care. At least it's down there for history. And when I'm long gone, at least people will be able to read the book. So
do you think, Craig, that it were aware of you?
Got to remember, Paul, it was a long time ago. So it's a bit hazy. I can't remember thinking to myself that it knew I was there.
Could you tell which way it were facing?
No.
Because what you described, you almost, to me,
well, it was
a predator.
Yeah, I mean, it
was a dark outline.
Well, yeah, sort of. I never thought of it that way, actually. It was more sort of facing towards me because I could make out the outlines of the shoulder blades. So it was sort of facing towards me. Not right at me. It was sort of at a bit of an angle, I think, if I remember. If my memory isn't.
Then you never saw it again working there.
I didn't see it again working there. No, although I did. There was some strange, what I would class as poltergeist activity that used to go on in the building. Glasses used to sort of fall off shelves and smash on the floor, or be lifted off hooks, because we used to have hooks underneath the front of the bar, and used to, the dimpled glass the old barrel ones.
Did they have their own glasses, some of them?
They did, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Creatures of habit. And so you used to hang those up with the on the hook with the handle, and they were big, heavy, substantial glasses, and the only way you could get them off the hook was to physically lift them up and pick them and take them off the hook. There were 2 or 3 occasions where some of those, one particular occasion where there was just me in the upstairs bar on my own, and I heard something smash behind me, and I turned round, and there was obviously one of these big, heavy barreled glasses had been lifted off one of the hooks, because there was just one empty hook, and the remnants of the glass smashed on the floor behind me, which was a little bit strange. But it was an old building. It was 1895, something like that.
Really? So it's not new. There's
No, quite an old
question
building.
here, which you'll understand. You might even. Christopher says the lady at Witches Galore said the house next door was haunted. I don't know. You obviously know this.
Well, I don't know her that well. I know I think she mentioned last time I went in, because I asked her if I could do a bit of videoing for the YouTube channel. And I think she mentioned that the place was haunted, but we never got into a conversation about it. But next time I go in, I'll ask her.
I wonder, Craig. I wonder how much. Say the experiences I had. Little semi-detached council house, South Yorkshire, and I'll never know whether next door. I wonder if they got affected by any of the strangeness. I do know that the man used to claim that there were a ghost, but I don't know if that were anything to do with what I experienced. But I wonder how much of that touches properties that have got no more than a 9-inch wall in between them, or you know what I mean, or two 4-inch bricks and a cavity. I wonder how much of the strangeness bleeds through into other properties. I don't know if anybody's ever done any research into that.
I don't know. But I'll next time I'm passing, I'll pop in and I'll have a chat and see if she can tell me any more about that, because it's interesting.
We've got another one here. There's Lee doing the moderating. What was the last paranormal encounter from recent times on cases coming into Pendle? Pendle. Keep up the great work.
What was the last paranormal encounter times that I know of? There's a few in the village. It's a good question, but it's just making me think who I've spoken to recently. There is a property in the village that I was in the pub recently, and I was chatting to somebody actually, and he said, "Oh, you need to speak to such and such a body who comes in here. He lives in," and they told me the house. I won't say where it is, because apparently he doesn't want people turning up on his doorstep doing, ghost investigations. But I was talking to a guy who fixes white goods, fixing washing machines and fridges and that sort of thing. And he said he was in there, and he was fixing the washer, and he said he could hear this sounding like a little child running around in the room above where he was on the floorboards. And he said, when he mentioned it to the guy who lived in this house, he said, "Yeah, it happens all the time." But I was speaking to somebody else about the same place, and she used to go in and sort of do his cleaning for him, basically. And she used to take her young daughter in with her, who was only about 3 or 4 at the time. And her young daughter used to get really excited when she knew her mum were taking her into this house, because she wanted to play with the little boy who lived there.
Right, yeah. It's fascinating. I wonder, Craig, if certain types of people ignite the phenomena. Do you know what I mean? Because you get some people who go into a property and nothing ever happens, or even move into a property that's allegedly haunted or got activity and nothing happens, and then another couple might move in, not necessarily with children.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden it starts. I wonder if it works on the basis, because it probably doesn't happen when people are there. We don't know, do we? Is it a certain individual or a certain type of person, group of people that can ignite the phenomena more than another?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the theory is that it's like tuning into different frequencies, isn't it? So, there may well be something going on constantly in a house, let's say. And you may have people who've lived there for years who've never noticed it because they can't tune into it. They can't pick up on it.
We kind of touched on it earlier before you came on.
It's like tuning a radio pole, basically, at the end of the day.
Yeah, but certain people, you get certain groups of people where we go, and they don't kill it. They're not bad for the group of people that we're with, but the atmosphere doesn't feel right or attuned to actually receiving something.
Yeah. You know what I mean. People give off vibes, don't they? So I think if you've got somebody who is very definitely a non-believer, or somebody who is massively skeptical, and it'll take heaven and earth to change the mind, I think that can have a negative effect on other people around them as well, and not only a negative effect on that particular place. And I mean, if there is some sort of some sort of entity or spirit there that is intelligent, is it going to waste its time trying to interact with somebody that it can tell doesn't believe it exists?
Yeah.
You know, maybe the ghost thinks, bugger this for a game of marbles. I'm not wasting my time with this person. Yeah, you don't know.
Was I seeing this? Perhaps get a little bell to ring when you require refreshments. They'll be polite, because your good lady seems very accommodating. Yeah, I don't think she'd wear a bell. I don't think she would. She wouldn't do that.
No, mine wouldn't.
You'll be listening to this. She'll let me have a head with something when I go in. But it was my sense of humour. Thanks for the question. Oh, but it's not a question, is it? Let's see Mel's in. Let's just see if there's any more questions, Craig. You're okay for 10 minutes, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah.
And just bear with me. It's on about the books here. If I wanted to buy any of your books, do I need to have PayPal? You could, if you wanted to contact me, Disabled Welshman, I could sort that out with you. Just email me, or eBay. eBay's good. PayPal, it's entirely up to you. And but reach out to me, we'll sort it. Let's have a look. I don't know whether these are for me or you. Hi, Paul. What's your friend's take on the skull experiment after all these years? Thoughts?
I've got no idea what it is.
Well, right, it would interest you. Look up the skull experiment.
Okay.
It would fascinate you.
I will. Yeah, no, I will definitely. Sorry, I genuinely don't know what it is.
There's no shame in that, Craig. I get asked loads of things, and I don't have any knowledge of it because I just get my head immersed in what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, let's just have a look. One sec. And what about you touched on poltergeist activity, Craig? What experience have you had with poltergeists? And it's a broad question, really, but what do you think they are?
What do I think they are? I think there are a number of things. In the olden days, in Lancashire we used to call them boggarts, and they were mischievous spirits, basically.
Yeah.
Who used to play havoc with people and so on. I mean, they are, the word poltergeist means mischievous spirit, doesn't it? It's German, I believe, and it means mischievous spirit. I think it's leftover energy, which is intelligent. I think it's leftover energy from a person or persons who have maybe left this world in unpleasant circumstances, or have lived their lives as being unpleasant people. And there's a lot of negative energy, a lot of negative feelings, a lot of negative emotions attached to them. And I think that's why they tend to be more active when you've got people who are going through puberty. So children, young teenagers or whatever that are going through puberty, that are giving off a lot of negative emotions, or can give off a lot of negative emotions, a lot of confused emotions, shall we say.
Yeah.
And I think these entities home in on that and use that to sort of feed their energy. So I think probably, as we all know, some of the most famous poltergeist cases have revolved around children or young adults. Usually girls, although there have been occasions where they've revolved around boys or young men as well. And so I think basically that's what they are. I think it's a word that you can use to describe a lot of different types of phenomena and entities.
Do you think it tends to start very subtly? I've not got great knowledge of it, but the knowledge I have of Hummonby, in that case I've looked into extensively, it started with poltergeist activity, almost peripheral movement, almost things that weren't quite right. And as their awareness, Craig, grew to it, the phenomena itself, that's what we're going to call it, tend to get older and grew and became more outrageous.
Yeah, things tend to start off quite innocuously, I think, and you get maybe little things happening that then sort of snowball. So I think if you read about the most famous cases, they always tend to start off as something fairly benign that happens that seems a bit strange, and then things start to intensify. And whether or not that's the fear of the people that are involved that's feeding it, rather than the entity itself becoming stronger on its own. I think it's feeding off the energy of people that are living in these places or living in these houses or whatever. I think it's using them to sort of feed its own ability, and obviously it's like a snowball effect, isn't it? The bigger the snowball gets, the more snow it gathers as it's rolling along.
Do you think our thought process then affects the outcome of interaction with unexplained phenomena? So if we went into it with a positive attitude, we might get a positive return, or do you think there's definitely a light and a dark? Because I sometimes wonder if we're dealing with the same thing. It's just giving it what we want or what it wants from us.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a sort of feeding scenario where it is feeding off us. I think going in with a positive attitude, I don't know whether that would make any difference or not, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it would be very difficult to stay positive when you read about some of the things. So, obviously the famous ones are the Enfield poltergeist, for instance, although there's obviously, various different fields of thought about what was going on there. But some of the things that were happening, I mean, if you're sat in a room and suddenly a shower of pins start falling from the ceiling, you're hardly going to stay positive about that particular situation. You're going to, pardon my language, you're going to shit yourself, aren't you? That's going to give off negative energy, and it's going to feed whatever it is, I think, even more. I often wonder whether poltergeists and demons are the same sort of thing. It's just that it's a poltergeist that's got inside somebody and is manipulating them. And I know that Hollywood likes to sort of portray, these demon hunters as, these certain types of people that go in there and, draw these entities out of people. But I'm not sure going in and being all smiles and happy and laughing when you're dealing with something like that is gonna make much of a difference, to be honest. No. I think it would.
See what this is, Craig. Dragonborn says, when visiting my late best friend, Pat Adams, right? Anybody who remembers Pat, lovely lady, we've had her on here, and she's sadly not with us now. She took me to Pendle Hill. I walked part of it. Very strange vibe from it. Wouldn't you agree, or would you agree?
Yeah. I don't know whether you believe in ley lines or not, or what your thoughts are on ley lines, but there are two. If you look at certain maps, and certain ones going back a long way, a long time, there are two quite significant ley lines which cross on Pendle Hill. Pendle itself, there's been a lot of archaeological digs done around the area, and it would seem that about 5,000 years ago, so is that Iron Age or Bronze Age? I'm not sure. But about 5,000 years ago, there were people living in the area, and they obviously viewed Pendle Hill as somewhere very special because they were burying people at the summit. There's actually a burial site which has been dated back to about 5,000 years, right up at the summit. Now, as that person will testify, if you're walking up Pendle, it's steep, and it's a trek, and it is hard work. And therefore, why would you want to carry a body all the way up there?
Good point. Yeah.
Bury it unless it was something that was particularly important. So there is, the place has got a feel to it. There's not two ways about it. There is energy around here. There are, certain times of the year where I think it feels more alive than others. Autumn being one. Whether that's got anything to do with Halloween or not, I don't know. But certainly autumn and winter has its own particular feel on the hill. It's, sort of summertime, middle of summer when it's nice and sunny, and it doesn't quite feel as, foreboding and scary, although it's still got that element to it when you're up there. So yeah, definitely, it definitely has a sort of feeling all to itself. And I think to a certain degree, you take your own interpretation with you when you go to somewhere like this. Because with all due respect, people read up about the witch trials, they read up about Pendle Hill, they have certain expectations, and they perhaps take those expectations with them, and that is not a bad thing. If you go up to the top of Pendle Hill and you sit up there and you look out across the views on a nice sunny day, which are amazing. It's one of the greatest places to sit and just look at views. You'll get your own feeling from the place,
I'll just get to this. It's the question here. I don't know how much we can apply to it. I worked in a pub in London right next to Charing Cross Station in the early 90s. No one liked the cellar, didn't mind so much till I got pushed near to the open lift hatch. I wasn't the only person. So there's a dark energy to some of this, isn't there?
Well, there is absolutely, yeah. I've got a lady coming on the podcast later on this week, who's done some research into a place in Accrington called Warner Street, which is it's possibly one of the most haunted streets in Britain, but it tends to fly under the radar because it's not as trendy as York or London or places like that. Bempton, those sort of places.
I don't reckon people would say Bempton were trendy, but
but she had a great story. Like I said, second time I interviewed her, she had a great story where she was in this place that they were having a lot of poltergeist activity, and her husband, who she said is a big chap, was forcibly pushed down the stairs by something, really? And he said he could feel the hands on him as they were pushing him. So yeah, I mean, there's I think when that happens, when there's physical contact, I think that is the most frightening aspect of something like this.
Well, that leads us into this question here then. Craig, what's the most frightening experience you have had? When I went to get myself a drink.
That was pretty scary, yeah, being
joking,
being chucked on at the last minute. Probably that shadow man that I saw was pretty scary. I don't do a lot of investigations, I'll be honest, and it's something that I probably should do more of, but it's just finding the time. But I did do an investigation at a school quite a few years ago now. And again, this is in the Shadow Man of Accrington book, and this was during the daytime. It was broad daylight. It wasn't, there was nothing. Sometimes I think when you go when you're doing an investigation and it's nighttime or it's going dark I think that can heighten what you're expecting. Sometimes I think you expect to see and so because we were going around during the day and it was broad daylight, I didn't expect anything at all. And the guy that was taking me around, taking a look, actually it was myself and Sarah. The guy that was taking us around was telling us about various things that had happened over the years in this school. And we went to one part of the school. We went into a room, and it was a really strange shaped room. It wasn't square. It was like the one of the corners had been like that. So it went to a point, if you know what I mean. And up into this corner where this point was he said, just go and stand up there and tell me what you feel. And I went and stood up there, and I had this really bad feeling, this really awful feeling. It was one of the classrooms, and it was a really awful feeling. I felt really sick and really dizzy. And apparently the teachers who taught in this particular school didn't like teaching in this room. They put a big whiteboard up across the apex of this corner so that nobody could go into this corner, because as soon as you stepped into it, it was like there was this dark energy there that was really oppressive. Really, really oppressive. I felt very hot, I felt very sweaty, I felt very shaky, and I felt very dizzy. And as soon as I took about 2 or 3 steps back, it went. And that is probably the weirdest thing that I've ever encountered or felt anywhere that I've been that has been, reputedly haunted. It was just a really unpleasant experience. It was like I felt seasick. That's probably the best way to describe it. It was like I was on a boat being tossed around in a force 10 gale. It was really, really weird. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not expecting you to know about this, Craig. I don't. Craig, have you heard of the vertical plane case, the Doddleston messages? If so, what are your thoughts?
I'm learning lots of new things today that I need to look up. I'm sorry, Terry, I don't.
No, sorry. I missed this question because I didn't think it applied, but I'll put it. Have you heard Rupert Sheldrake speak about the human resonance, which he speculates may be linked to long-term memory, could potentially be part of what beings brings about hauntings?
Again, I haven't, but it's an interesting theory, that, because I sometimes wonder whether it depends whether you believe in reincarnation or not. But I do wonder sometimes whether you can have situations where there's past lives encroaching on current life based on being in a particular place or being in a particular situation. And I think that can happen more than we understand. Do I believe in reincarnation? I don't know. I've not got enough evidence, but I mean, there are a lot of cases, aren't there, where especially children can talk about past lives in great detail and talk about people and places that they couldn't possibly know about. And when they go,
it's fascinating, isn't it? That people can
to these
tell you
places,
what's inside a building, never been in it, another location, another area, and know about things. And like you said, children know about things that past lives. But yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. I don't know how it could be.
Yeah. So maybe maybe that could be encroaching on current life. I don't know.
Just briefly then, Craig, because we've just about baked this. I think 2057. What are your thoughts about UFOs? Is it mainly Pendle that you concentrate on? But what about like UFOs, structured craft, light forms? What are your views on UFOs?
Well, we get a lot of UFO sightings around here. Pendle Hill has historically actually been, I think there's probably more UFO activity around Pendle Hill than there is paranormal activity, to be honest. People come to Pendle Hill and expect to see ghosts and witches left, right and centre on the hill, and that's not really how it is. It's not. Pendle Hill isn't haunted as far as I'm aware. But there are a lot of UFO sightings, and I've done quite a bit of research into sort of UFO sightings across the northwest of England, really, across the Lancashire area up into Cumbria. There's been a lot around Sellafield, and a lot around that sort of area, Cumbria, the nuclear power station up at where is it? It's near Morecambe, Heysham, the nuclear power station up at Heysham. There's been a lot of UFO sightings up there over the years. There was a spate of triangular UFO sightings that go back to around about the 1930s, pre World War II. There's a lot of first-hand witnesses, a lot of newspaper articles from the time of people seeing these strange triangular craft in the sky. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the area is quite active when it comes to UFOs. As I said, Pendle Hill is on ley lines, and again, I think ley lines have got a lot to do with it. I think ley lines attracting these, whatever they are, whether they are aliens or whether there's something else, whether they're interdimensional, whether they're, partly linked with the paranormal as well. There are so many questions, I think, around UFOs.
God's great. It's fascinating. I didn't know about the 1930s and earlier triangle sightings, because I've heard about early ones.
Yeah.
1901, we keep citing John Hanson had a report. But, I know we are actually time up now, but what do you, just briefly, what do you think then? Is that our tech, pre-1930s?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're still talking about the era of biplanes, aren't we? And
it's crazy, isn't it?
Propeller shafts and that sort of thing. These craft weren't described as being anything like people recognised. And in fact, I mean, there are local newspaper reports going back in the archives to pre-1900 in this area around Pendle of people seeing strange lights in the sky. And so, we're going back to pre-flight, never mind, pre biplanes and turboprops. We're going back to pre-flight. Yeah. And people were seeing these things and reporting them to the police. So, and strangely, I often wonder whether a lot of the stories about witches came from seeing these lights in the sky. Thinking that these witches were riding broomsticks and flying over Pendle Hill and with lanterns hanging off the end of the broomsticks, and in fact these lights was something else. I mean, we're not far from a place called, I'll be very brief, we're not far from a place called Caton Moor near Skipton, where there have been numerous sightings of UFOs. Todmorden's not that far from here, and we all know about Todd and what goes on around there. Not only UFOs, but animal mutilations and all sorts of stuff, abductions, you name it. That area of West Yorkshire and sort of going into East Lancashire, there's all sorts of stuff goes on. So yeah, it's a massive subject, and a lot of it I think is really intertwined with other things, so like paranormal, ley lines, geological factors. If people want to look up the work of Jenny Randalls, for instance, she talks a lot about how geology seems to attract different types of geology. Seem to attract these things. The Rosendale Valley, for instance, which is just south of here, just going down towards Manchester, massive amounts of UFO activity down there, and she's done a lot of research into that area, and she's convinced that it's a geological factor that's drawing them in.
And also says she's not right, Craig.
And Pendle Hill itself actually is geologically, I mean, I'm no geologist, but geologically it apparently is very interesting. And so again, you've got to think to yourself, well, is there some sort of magnetic field? Is there something bringing these things in? We don't know.
We don't know, and that's what keeps us inquiring, Craig.
Absolutely.
Well, Craig, thank you for giving us an hour of your time. I'll be speaking to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
As always, people, thanks for the support. Remember, it's somewhere there on your device, laptop, computer, phone. Press the like and subscribe. It's totally free. Just gives a bit of support to us at Truth Proof. And thank you, Craig, once again. Thanks everybody that's been in chat tonight and supported us. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you.
Good night. Bye-bye. Is this an adventure or what? We don't need unexplained phenomena. I hope you guys are enjoying this journey we're taking you on. I know you come expecting to hear about big cats, cryptids, UFOs. We will touch on some of that, but I think it's worth sharing some of this with you, don't you? There's only 2 living souls up here today.
Because I can see it in my mind, I can see it in my head what I saw, but I can't describe.
Our eyes was closed, like a brightish light in my face, and I just felt paralysed.
Someone said there's something out there, so we had a look. It looked like a walnut. That's the only way I can describe it.
It was like it had loads of tiny little windows all over it, and it had lights in those windows, but not a light that illuminates.
Anyway, we were ushered into this lounge, this fella come in, he said, whatever you saw was a weather effect.
And everything is deathly silent. There's no sea, there's no wind, there's no night noise because, you know, there's foxes all over here. There's nothing.